Hello, hello. Today we have another guest with us, Tara Behrens, and she runs operations. She's been running operations in her companies for 9 years, and today we'll be talking about how to level up to be an operations leader. This is the Sales Ops Effect, where we strengthen our skills as strategic leaders to grow businesses with integrity. Hello, Tara. How you doing?
Hi, Charlene. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
You're very, very welcome. So you've been running your companies for 9 years. How long have you been in operations?
I like to say I've been operations since I was a child, when we had, a mother and a father that weren't around. So as children, we had to learn how to organize ourselves and our routines and our food and to really care for ourselves.
So do you think operation skills is something that can be taught, or you just learn it, or you have something innate in you that leans towards it? What do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. It is both.
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah, because in order to be in operations, you must have a clear vision of where you're going and how you plan on getting there. But also you need to have the ability to pivot and change based on data and what information is telling you, not what you're feeling. So I think anyone can learn to do operations. It is the management of the people within your operation that is a skill that needs real molding and consistent effort and growth in.
Right. Yes, I get that. So I think what stood out for me there was the pivoting aspect, because that's something specifically that you do have to learn. Because if you just want to get something done, we've all gone through those points in life where it's just like, well, it should be straightforward. Why isn't it done? And then, something else happens and, oh gosh, I'm shocked. I don't know what to do. Did you learn that as a child as well? I imagine so, but do you recall a time that you could share?
Learning how to pivot as a child? Yeah. I don't know if I personally ever really had a choice. I didn't know that's what I was doing. But looking back on it now, I can see that, when you were planned to go to dad's house for the weekend, but he wasn't around, then you pivot and you have to change. And now you might be calling your friends to say, hey, I happen to have time available. Let's go to the mall, or whatever you want to do.
See, this is great, because one of the things that I want our listeners to get from this is the true understanding that a lot of us already have these skills built in.
Yes.
And, the example that you just gave, so many people would have experienced that. And so that muscle memory is actually there. You're not learning something from scratch. It's already there. You just need to translate it in different ways. So did you study operations?
No.
Okay. What did you study?
I didn't. I have learned through YouTube University and intentional learning, books, so many books, and a consistent drive to do better than I did the day before.
Yeah.
And I did it all. There was, I went to courses, leadership courses and things like that. But the education of how to run operations and how to manage your assets and the capacity of the people that you have and communication of change, so change management, that all came through trial and error, of course, and never quitting, even though there were many, many, many times that I've wanted to just toss it in and I was going to be a barista.
Yep, that's fair.
Because it seemed easier. But if you don't have something that you're going towards every day, then why are you getting out of bed?
Oh, yeah. And those are your big life questions.
Mm-hmm.
So within operations, I like to split things up like people, process, technology. Mm-hmm. Out of those three, what do you think was your most difficult aspect to learn?
People,
process, and technology. People?
100%.
Why?
Because I I dissect my life into two stages: life before Sheila and life after Sheila. And Sheila is a somatic therapist that I've worked with for quite a few years now. And, you said earlier, like, I just can't understand why it's not done or whatever. So at the time, in my old view of the world, I couldn't understand why people were so stupid and couldn't get my information. Why didn't they understand what I was trying to tell them? So what I really needed to learn was when I got excited, other people got excited. So the biggest skill I've learned in operations, sales, marketing, anything is to be able to remain calm when you are trying to get your ideas across to people, because people do not learn and they do not think like I do, like you do, like anyone else. It is so individual. And although there may be subgroups of learning styles and that type of information, at the end of the day, every single person learns and accepts and understands information differently. So I'm a huge analogy user for everybody because I have to make it about something that they understand.
Same. And do you know what? The whole analogy thing, I don't know if that's a neurodivergent thing or not, but I think I would be a different person if I didn't use as many analogies as I do. Like,
absolutely.
All the time. Analogies really help to have a bridge for languages.
Good one.
It's that's because if you get there, then like you might be able to inch over. And even if the analogy is wild, it still works. It still works, definitely. So you were studying, at what age did you have your first operations role? Did you start off like operations administrator, coordinator, anything like that?
I actually was 14 when I was given the opportunity to run a jet boating business office.
As you do. Okay, carry on.
So I lived in a small town on the edges of the Fraser River in Canada, Western Canada, and a man there had bought a jet boat. And we had a business in our family, a towing company. And he said, "Hey, Tara, you're not doing much over the summer. Will you come help me?" And I said, "Sure." So I started answering phones, and that's where I started creating process, strategy, systemization. If this is going to happen once, it is going to happen again. Therefore, why leave our education and our learnings to be restarted every time someone new joins the company? And that is where my love of process began, because I knew I was going back to, grade 11 after that summer, and they were going to have someone come in. So between lugging, jerry cans of fuel up and down the boat ramp, I answered phones and took payments and sent receipts and really learned more about how the business operated. But I was very lucky to have experience within our own personal family business and hearing the lingo and understanding the overall flow of how a customer journey goes. Even though I didn't understand at the time, this was a customer mapping of their journey.
I have a question here as well. So you said that you understood that you were going back to school and somebody else would have to take over. And so that's why you were thinking of process and strategy and systemization, because somebody else would have to do it. Mm-hmm. Can you go a deeper layer there, even if it's just a sentence or two? Because again, you were 14. So why do you think that was important to you, that somebody else would know what to do? You could have just said, "Yeah, I'm gone. I did my job. I did it well."
Because I think as people, we always have a deep need to make the places that we go to not better, but increased. And he didn't start this business so that I could come in for 3 months and then he didn't know it. He couldn't teach it. So for the longevity of his business, I made sure that he was able to continue on. He would have been fine had I just left. But in my life and up to that date, if I wasn't the one doing the things and no one else knew how to do it, then I was effectively chained there and could not leave. And I wanted freedom more than anything. So I made sure, and still do to this day, that if I win the lottery tomorrow and don't show up to work, and I like to say that better than if I die or get hit by a bus.
Mm-hmm.
So if I win the lottery tomorrow and don't show up to work, that company is still okay. It doesn't need me. It needs my systems that I've put in place and the culture that we've put in place.
Yes. And I think those are excellent points, because what that speaks to me of is care, actual care for the people that are following you. Because like that's you cared for people who you didn't even know their names. There was somebody that was going to come in after you and you didn't want to have them to start from scratch. And there's something about that that's in the human.
It's super observancy, and it is avoiding blame.
Oh,
It's avoiding, for me, when I started, it was avoiding blame so that no one could ever come to me and say, you don't know what you're doing, you're stupid, and because of that, you've hindered my ability to do something in the future. And I was like, no, I will not. Nope.
So
I'll make it so easy for you to succeed.
It can even almost include perfectionism then.
Absolutely.
Again, yeah, and do you know what? Snap, me too. So much of my stuff was, I am going to be so pristine that I'm going to be above reproach. You won't be able to ask me anything because it's all written down. It's ready to go. And that is not healthy. However,
and it's not realistic.
It's not healthy. It's not realistic. But like with many things in life, if you take it in moderation, a touch of it at the beginning of a journey can help push you in the right direction. But, listeners, we're not recommending that you stay there for several years, like I did at the very least. There is that. But one of the other things there's the care / perfectionism / don't blame me for things. I've got stuff that I need to deal with, but I don't want to tell you that. I'm just saying don't blame me. As well as purposefully knowing that you can extract yourself. I'm a big believer in that. One thing that I always tell people that I train in sales ops is, as soon as you know what to do, clone yourself. Clone yourself in any way you can. You do every single recording, you write everything down. You want to clone yourself because particularly in smaller businesses, we don't have a big old department in sales ops. It's usually just us or maybe one other person if we're lucky. You need to clone yourself just in case.
Yeah. And that is what makes an administrator. So what is the general title of your audience?
Sales ops. So sales ops manager, head of sales ops coordinator. Sometimes people are called sales enablement and they end up being asked to do sales ops because a lot of people come in via the tech route of setting up a CRM. But yeah, it's mostly sales operations.
So would it be fair to say that most listeners are going to have technical skill and learning from their education and maybe YouTube University or however they've learned to do sales ops, but they've never been in charge of seeing a company from start to finish. So they don't have the leadership training yet. Is leadership a part of sales operations training?
It is when I do it.
That's right. And that's why we're coming to you, girl. That's exactly it.
It's not in a lot of places. A lot of training, unfortunately, is about the technical, is about the standard sales processes. It's about the analytics because we're very big on data-driven decision-making, as I know you are too.
Yes.
But a lot of it doesn't include proper communication skills, actual strategic leadership, because quite frankly, the people that are making the training in a lot of cases for what sales ops is are coming from a sales background instead of a leadership background. And yes, this is about sales, but you cannot create the kind of change that sales ops needs to do without having your strategic leadership hat on, being able to speak to people from multiple different departments, in their own language, or at the very least in a language that is partway in between, so that you can understand each other. That's so important and pivotal. It's not all about the numbers. So much of it is about the personhood and the far thinking, so that everything can match up into the journey that we're going into, our maturity model, as people have heard me say over and over again.
Yes. And managing and understanding how to manage the expectations of those as a sales operations going into a company. When people, I do my sales operations, and Charlene and I have talked about this 100 times. I do sales operations and don't know that I'm doing sales operations. I don't know the technical terms. I don't know the things. You have taught me so much. And if I were to hire someone today to come in and do sales operations for our business, they would need to almost use someone else as a buffer, because they're speaking in one language. And the people who have to do the things they need them to do to get the data to come back to me to make decisions, they don't speak the same language. They don't have the same goals. Although if we sat down in a meeting and we understood our overall and hierarchical goal, then we would get that. But those people who don't know what sales ops does thinks that they're going to come in and do it like that. And by tomorrow, our CRM should be up and running, and all of our customer database should be completely available, and it should link all of the places, and we should have SMS text messages to all of our employees and customers, and it should just be the flip of a switch. Why isn't it that?
Yes.
And if you don't know how to explain to somebody what it is that actually needs to happen, or some version of that, then you'll consistently feel as though you are not giving them what they want, because they don't understand that what they want takes time.
Oh, yes. And, where you're starting from in a lot of cases, being the fix-it person, a lot of people they're coming in to fix the CRM, as you were saying. What happens is that the person that's telling you what to do is telling you what to do from the knowledge that they've got. The head of sales has watched a YouTube episode, or they've been to a conference and they've heard the buzzwords, right? Yeah. That's not to say that they're wrong all of the time, but sometimes it's not the right thing to do right now. And so if you stay at a certain level of, if you tell me what to do, I'll do it, then you are going to be run ragged, and it's all going to be about the tech and make disconnect to that. Why? You don't know, but you're just being asked to do that. And the person asking you to do all of these things doesn't necessarily understand, how long it will take, how it's supposed to actually connect to the wider picture of anything, or even if it's the right thing to do right now, the most important thing to do right now. And that's the difference between being like that, the fix-it person, and becoming the strategic leader. Is in a lot of cases, you're telling the head of sales what the development plan is behind the scenes that supports the sales team. Now, obviously, you're getting a lot of information from the sales team, from the head of sales, but you're the one with the data. You see the data first. You see the analytics. And together with the plans, the go-to-market plans that the head of sales and product and whoever are working up, and obviously you're involved in them, you then translate what they are saying into what you know from the back end, and you translate it back to say, okay, this is what you want. This is what we've got. This is what we need to do to bridge the gap. Mm-hmm. So from your experience, Tara, how do you become a strategic leader, in a couple of minutes?
How do you become a strategic leader in a couple of minutes? You help people.
Help people.
That's what you do. And how you do that is, hey, John, if that's the head of sales, say, hey, John, what is it that you want? What is your ultimate goal at the end of this? Well, I want X, Y, Z. Cool. I can help you do that. Here's what I need from you. And if you go into it on a tech basis and you show yourself as an administrator only, that is all you will ever be. They will never believe that you are valuable, because you are replaceable, because you're just someone that hits keys and makes things work for other things. But when you become an advice giver and a rant listener who is a vault, you cannot go and tell what your head of sales is saying to you to anyone else. I mean, there's obviously points at which you would when it's detrimental to the company and other people and human rights and whatever else comes into play. But you need to be a trustworthy source who is able to zoom out to that 10,000 foot view of where we are to where we're going. Because when we're climbing mountains, you see the beautiful landscape of a mountain, you don't see the 10-foot crack you have to jump through. It just looks like a pretty landscape. But you haven't tried to hike it in your own boots. And that's what they don't see. So you need to be able to zoom in and zoom out based on the person you are speaking to and what their ultimate goal is. Because the company will have a goal, but each department head has their own goals. And if you can figure out how to get them to tell you what they want and you can help them get it, you'll be working how you want to work for life.
Oh my gosh, yes. I completely agree. I'd applaud, but that would be like funny right now. Because
be funny.
that is it though, isn't it? It's just everybody wants something. Can you get it? Can you get it without being sleazy or breaking promises or whatever? Then
yes,
you gain trust, you communicate appropriately. And I think, obviously you have to be organized, but gaining trust and communicating appropriately at all levels.
Yes. And understanding that it is at all levels. You are not person A with a sales leader and person B with the janitor. You must be the same person to all people, because reputation and trust, as you know very well, takes so much time. It is the consistent building upon of every little interaction. And the minute you stray from that and what they're expecting, they will question you. This is a book that I absolutely love. It's called The Games People Play. And the preface of the book, without going through the whole thing, is every interaction you have with someone will have one of three outcomes: negative, neutral, positive. So every discussion, every time you see someone on the street and you go, "Hey, how are you?" And they go, you've left that interaction feeling less than awesome about it. If they just didn't see you or ignored you, they didn't see you, you say, "Oh, it doesn't matter," neutral. Or they go, "Hey, how are you?" And you're like, "Great." Does the conversation continue on? How many points is each interaction giving you? And it's the same. That is just relationship math. And if you have more negative reactions, then you will have a negative relationship. If you have more positive reactions, you will have a positive relationship. And that's it. It's that simple.
Yeah. I think one of the things I was remembering as you were speaking as well is you were saying being that vault and the person that the head of sales can rant to. That's very important, because leaders often don't have a lot of people to talk to.
No, we don't. We can't.
It's very, very difficult. And sales ops is such an interesting role in that the salespeople don't report to us, but we are pivotal to the running.
And that's why you're pivotal, because they don't report to you. And there is no consequence for speaking the truth to you.
Yeah.
Unless what they're saying is, "I'm planning on robbing a bank." Okay, then there's consequence.
Illegal and immoral, then you deal with it.
If you're frustrated with the time something is taking, or you're upset with someone's inability to do something, we need to be able as leaders to get that off. And it's not that it needs to be placed on someone else. It's that someone hears it.
Yeah.
And as the sales operations person, if you have a leader coming to you saying, "I'm frustrated with this, this, and this," as a manager, I would ask my sales operations person to say to that leader, "Has the task been delegated effectively, clearly, with a SMART goal attached to it, how it is supposed to be done, and with a deadline for completion and deadline for consistent project journey check-ins. Are we on track? Are you running your people, or are they running you?
Oh, yes. And in sales, the profile of salespeople can be kind of wild sometimes. And a lot of sales managers are simply salespeople who just no longer want to do the hunting. That might sound really crass, but that's what a lot of sales managers are. And a lot of them either haven't gone on leadership training or managerial training, or don't take any of those things seriously because they just think it's just a natural progression of things. And, they treat their salespeople marginally better than they were treated. So therefore everything is fine. But there is a difference between coaching the sales team as a head of sales. There's a difference between coaching the sales team to do their sales and being the internal administrator with a capital A. That's measuring their performance, holding them accountable. And a lot of salespeople, I tap the mic, but this is the kind of mic where it wouldn't make a difference. A lot of salespeople are not held accountable. A lot of them are not held accountable. Back in the day, salespeople were paid what they were paid because their jobs were risky, and you could bring them in and you'd let them go very, very easily. Nowadays, that's not the case. It is not the case, but they're still being paid like as if their jobs are risky, and so that's also what you're dealing with. And the bar just gets lower and lower. We've all seen the memes online about, the sales manager saying to the salesperson, have you called them? Oh, I sent them an email. Have you called them? I sent them a text. Have you called them? I sent them a LinkedIn message. And that makes me think, why am I a salesperson?
My eyes twitching thinking about that conversation because I've had it. Yeah. Why are you making this more difficult than it needs to be?
Yes.
All we need to know is if this person is a yes or no. That's the ultimate goal. Make the phone call, get the answer, move on.
Yes. And you can see why that sales manager is going to be frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, the point you illustrated is that they went from a high performing salesperson to someone believed that because they were a high performing salesperson, they could be a high performing sales manager. Yeah. They're completely different jobs. They're apples and oranges, and leading people to sell is basically an uneducated psychologist. We are going to work through your fears of why you don't want to get on the phone. Why don't you want to? And do we need to teach you how to enter your lead and move things along? Yes, if you don't know how, we need to do that. But at the end of the day, salespeople are paid, especially here in my industry, salespeople are paid what they are paid because it is their whole life. They are out with their clients. They are having to drink with them, talk to them at all hours of the day. They have to be available 24/7. Or so that's what the model has led us to believe. It's incorrect, and you don't need to do that. Here's where drawing boundaries as a salesperson comes in. But as a leader, if you were an awesome salesperson, all that meant is that you were willing to give away your time and energy for a trade-off of money. That's not leadership. That's friendship. And to make the mark from a friend to a parent is very different.
Yes.
And they don't get it.
You as a sales ops person coming in, you're trying to be a strategic leader. You're trying to not just take orders and do things that really aren't moving the needle. If you can see that your head of sales is frustrated or suffering in some way, you want to get closer to them. You do not want to become their accidental assistant. It can happen. That's not what you want. But you want them to be able to trust you, to speak to you, to tell you what difficulties that they are having. Because if you know that, then you can help them. You'll manage them. So managing upwards, you'll help them to help you. Because if you help them, they also are the sales team. The sales team will help you with more data in the system and better data in the system. And that might seem like, that's a bit out of my remit. It's sales ops. That's
Survivor Island, baby.
Particularly in this time frame that we've got where more people are understanding that they need to do more and learn more as managers. It's slow, but it's much better than it was 10 years ago,
Yes.
People who went through the schooling system and were effectively told that this is the learning that you need to do, and then when you go out into the big wild world, you've got everything. Don't know how to learn. They felt
why would they
be vulnerable? It's difficult. It makes people emotional. People get weird when they don't know how to do things, and some people can't admit it. And you don't need to be people's therapists, but you do need to be aware of that and be the person that is the vault and that is understanding of what it takes to actually crack yourself open and learn. Because you're going to need people to crack themselves open to do things differently, because you're the one that's in there making this change.
That's right. And managing up, leadership is not a title. It's not. And every single one of us has a backpack of rocks we are carrying, which is the weight of our responsibilities and challenges in our life. And being an ear for that person is simply helping to remove the backpack. You are not putting it on yourself and you are not carrying it for them. You are simply helping them remove it and maybe sort it out a bit and figure out what we can keep and what needs to go. And if you can manage your manager and your manager happens to be a great salesperson, then what is your manager going to do? They're going to go and tell your sales team how awesome you are. And then you have respect.
And it's almost like, to be a strategic leader, people would need to respect you.
It's an axiom I've heard in the past. Yeah.
It might just help.
And the respect comes too, again, through those consistent daily interactions, being a steady, stable, consistent person for everybody.
Yeah.
But then you need that for yourself too.
Yes. It's being of high integrity.
Yes.
Because again, a lot of people don't have high opinions of the sales team. So to say that you're in sales, but you don't do sales, but you're not the admin person, what are you? You're a person of high integrity that is making change that helps this whole company.
You know what, Charlene? Most salespeople don't have a high opinion of themselves. It's all fake, and it's so fake, and it's exuberant confidence because of internal inability to love themselves. And when I watch salespeople now, it's a totally different lens than when I used to watch them before Sheila. I thought they were just the coolest people. And how do they have so much energy and so much confidence? And how do they just be friends with everybody? Because they are no one. They are nothing to themselves. They don't know who they are or what they enjoy or what makes them actually happy. They're just out trying to make everybody love them.
And using bravado, and that's what worked back in the day, is being extremely confident. Confidence breeds excitement, and people will just believe you if you just say it loudly and strongly enough for long enough.
It's true.
That's how things used to be.
Yeah.
Things are changing.
Yeah. I have a lot of compassion for high ticket, high revenue sales people, because now I really can see what's actually happening. We can't tell them.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it, and they're not in a place to be able to be open to hearing that, but it's the truth.
Oh, yes. I mean, have I told people? I think I have, but not in that very obvious way. You kind of have to nudge them towards the water. So it's again, you let them speak. You let them speak and just go, well, what are you concerned about here? What are you worried about? And you just let them talk long enough. Because again, to be a salesperson, even between a salesperson and their manager, they probably still feel like they have to wear the mask. They probably still feel like they have to show that bravado. And that's why, again, it's so difficult to have that kind of relationship, because there's very little psychological safety there. You'd have to be a great sales manager, of which I know a few, but there ain't that many because of what the role is. And that's why one of the many reasons why sales operations is so important, and why it's so pivotal that we become strategic leaders and not admin order takers, because they need us to be that role.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I lost my point for a second there. ADHD.
I do love it. It's okay. we've said so much now anyway, and so I want to thank you for joining us and talking through all of this. It was so great to hear your opinions on everything from being the COO, just so that we're clear, people. That's what operations leadership is. When you get to the top, that's what it looks like. So thank you so much for joining us, and everybody listening and watching. If you would like to see and hear Tara again, she's at the Bare Necessities. The link is in the show notes because it's not spelled how you think.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yes. Thank you. I've enjoyed it so much, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
Oh, I hope so. We'll make a series maybe. What you're doing, Charlene, is a service that the educational institutes don't even know is needed. And people going through your courses and your training will learn how to do just this. And they can't get that anywhere else. I've Googled it.
Yeah.
So well done to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. And we will speak soon. Thank you, everybody listening and watching. I'll see you next week. Bye.